I don't care if it's somebody on the screen, the TV screen that you really admire. Be careful who you follow. Even in the church house, you got to be careful who you follow. These disciples, they followed Peter, and he's going fishing. They go and get in the boat with him. And that night, they caught absolutely nothing. When we go fishing, and this is the term after Easter, when we go fishing after Easter, and I hope you don't misunderstand this. This doesn't mean that after Easter on a Sunday, or after Christ has come into your life, you should not fish. You understand that? For those of you who enjoy fishing, it's not that. The play on the word here is to look at the fact that after Christ comes into our life, something happens after that. And when we realize that Christ is raised from the dead, we have to be careful of these principles that we see in the text. Don't lose your sense of purpose. And also, we must be aware of the fact that we can become unproductive. They fished all night long. Can you imagine what it's like to fish for hours? Now, I don't know. I'm not a big fisherman. My grandfather used to be a fisherman, Deacon Meekins. He was down in South Carolina. Y'all know I got to talk about South Carolina, right? And he would love to go fishing, and sometimes it was just so good for him to get up, and him and some of the fellas, they get themselves ready. They were so excited, get the bait together, and these little crickets, and oh, those crickets, oh. I remember he used to have a little lemon. For those of you who know about fishing, he have a little lemon or something in a container just to keep the bait alive and to keep them excited. Some days they use worms, and sometimes they have these crickets, and he'd pick them up and put them, oh, what's the matter with this? Boy, he called me Bud. What's the matter with this, Bud? I said, ooh. They get themselves all excited, and some days they go down to Santee. You know about Santee, South Carolina. See, I know I'm in the right place now. You hear somebody say, Go down there, and they go fishing and spend time all day, and he come back and say he caught about 100 fish. I'll never forget. He caught 100 fish. And then he says, but I threw most of them back. I said, what? If I'm going to sit out there all day in that hot sun and sweating and, oh my goodness. But it was just the enjoyment. I understand it's relaxing. It's therapeutic. He sits on the water. But Peter, he is a great fisherman. And he knows the right time to fish. He knows how to fish. But he stays all night long. Him and those other folks, those fellas, they hanging with him. They caught absolutely nothing. That's another thing. You have to be careful who you hang around, because, you know, if you hang around unproductive people, you too might become unproductive. If you see people wasting time, doing the same old thing, getting the same old results, and going nowhere, be very careful. Especially our young people, be very careful who you're associating with. So here it is, they're hanging out, and they caught absolutely nothing. If you don't want to be productive in your life, that's one thing. But if you really want to be productive, this is not the thing to do. They toiled all night. But you know what? This is not the first time Peter experienced this. You do know that in the Bible, this happened before to Peter. Peter met Christ, and he was on the water, and Jesus told him what to do. Because they were, he was fishing and just toiling, him and the man, just toiling and catching nothing. And Jesus told him, cast your net. He did it. This is not the first time. As a matter of fact, it was in Luke chapter 5. And there was no number of fish given that they caught because the net broke. They had so many. But Peter, here he is now, going through the same thing. You know, brothers and sisters, in life, sometimes God brings something back to you once again. He'll bring the same thing back to you to teach you another lesson. That's what he'll do. Look at somebody and say, that's what he will do. The same lesson, because sometimes we don't get it right the first time. You know, some people, they make a mistake and go to, Lord, please forgive me, Lord. I'm just a snot running down the nose. Oh, Lord, I'm just so sorry. and you receive the forgiveness. And then give you about another couple of days for some people. Right back to the same old thing. Learn the lesson the first time. But anyway, as we hurry on, the Lord allows Peter for a purpose to go through this. And he comes here. And so we said that number one, we can what? Lose our sense of purpose. Number two, we said what? We become unproductive. Look at verse 4. It says, but when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. That's interesting. They were out all night, caught nothing, until morning. They still didn't catch anything, did they? Jesus stands on the shore. This is the resurrected Lord. He reveals himself. But the disciples knew not that it was who? This is the third point. This is one I gave you earlier by mistake, but it says we lose focus. They didn't even recognize Jesus. He's right there in front of them, and they didn't even recognize him. How many of us today can say that as we look back over our life, there were times when the Lord was right in the midst of things and we didn't even recognize him? He's trying to work something out, and we are so busy doing something our own way until we didn't even recognize him. See, that's the challenge about being unproductive, is that they were toiling all night until the day, and you see, that's what carnality will do for you. Working in the flesh, trying to do things our own way, that's what happens. And so now they get up in the morning, Jesus is right there, and they're so caught up into what they're doing until they don't even realize that Jesus is right there. They don't recognize him. That's a dangerous thing in life, to lose focus, not realize that the Lord is near. Amen? Verse 5 says, Then Jesus saith unto them, Children, have ye any meat? And they answered him, No. Children, have you any meat? And they answered him, what? No. Number 5, this is a very interesting point. What happens when we go fishing after Easter like Peter, we are baited like fish. We are baited like fish. Does anybody know what a bait is? What is a bait? Something that you use to catch the fish. I gave you the answer a few minutes ago when I was talking about my big daddy, when he used to have the worm that he put on the hook. Or he would take something else, put it right on the hook, and the cricket, he put it there. And the idea is when you put that down in the water, the fish see it, and what do? They go after the bait, but underneath the bait is the hook. And they get caught. Right, Deacon Fuller? Get caught. And then you just reel them right on in. Well, I just want to tell you that when you run into the master fisherman, Jesus Christ, he knows exactly what it takes to lure us right on in. He knows what it takes. He shows up, they didn't recognize him, and he comes and says, oh, what does he say to him? What does it say in the text? Have you what? Any meat. Have you any meat? He raised a question. Now think about who's raising the question. This is Jesus, the resurrected Lord. He knows everything. So why is he asking this question? Does he not know it? Of course he knows the answer. It's just like when God saw Adam, he says, Adam, where art thou? It doesn't mean that he didn't see Adam. But sometimes God will raise a question to help us to see where we are, for us to come to the realization of ourselves. So he raised the question to the men, and what was the question? Have you any meat? He knew they didn't catch any. And can you imagine somebody asking you, after you've been working and toiling all night, what you mean did we catch any? What, you trying to be funny? You see our net is empty and you're asking us, do you have any meat? Oh my. But unfortunately, that's what happens. But you got to see that Jesus is at work. Even in the midst of things that we go through in life that we don't understand, brothers and sisters, the Lord is still at work. And so we become baited like fish. He's reeling Peter right on in, right where he wants them, and the men, the other disciples, because if you look at verse 6, it says, and he said unto them, cast the net on the right side of the ship, and you shall what? Find. It says they cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes. My goodness. So what was the first thing we said? See, you don't remember. You're not taking notes. You see? We lose our sense of purpose. Number 2, we what? We become unproductive. Number 3. And number 4, we what?
We are baited like fish.
And now the last thing I will say, I'll take my seat. We are taught how to fish. We're taught how to fish. This is Jesus' school. He knows how to teach. He knows how to make things clear for us. Because these men, they're supposed to be master fishermen. They're supposed to know how to catch fish. But they didn't catch any. All night they're out there. And now Jesus comes. They didn't even recognize him. But he tells them to do what? Cast it on the right side. That's interesting. They could have been on the left side all along and couldn't catch anything. Even if they were on the right side, they didn't catch anything before. But there must have been something about this right side. They didn't catch it. How is it that Jesus tells them put on the right side, and at the right time, they catch all of these fish? He knew. Look how awesome he is. He knew exactly when they should throw the net in. He knew where they should put it and the timing. Isn't that like God? We serve, brothers and sisters, an awesome God. He knows everything. Peter and the disciples, they learn a great lesson about after you encounter Jesus, the resurrected Lord. He teaches them how to fish. One of the things I would say we get out of this right here too is the fact that at least they obeyed. Because, many of us, after we're doing something for a long time, and it's not getting us anywhere, to hear somebody tell you, well, try it once again. What do you mean try it again? I've been doing that for the last 6 years. Are you talking about try it again? I've been doing it for a long time. Are you telling me try it again? But when you listen to the master fisherman, he tells you what to do. I don't care how crazy it may look. If the Lord tells you to do it, you do it. That's almost like the first miracle that Jesus performed at the wedding in Cana. His mother Mary, she looked and they ran out of wine, and she tells everybody, listen, if my boy tells you to do something, to fill up the pitcher with water, you just go ahead and do it. Just do it, because if the Lord says something, he means it. And if he says something, he's going to bring it to pass, because his word never fails. They were obedient, and they did it. As foolish as it sounded, they did it. And you know what? It's interesting. When we have tried so much in our life to do some things, and it just seems like it's just not working for some of us, it's like, well, Lord, I might as well. What else do I have? I'll be right in the same place anyway, so I might as well try one more time. They did it. And what happened? And if you keep reading, it says that they caught about, I think it was 153 fish. Interesting. The first time that Peter encountered this in Luke, the nets broke. This time, the nets did not break. Catch allowed them to see the number of fish, 153. God allows you to see your results when he's in it. See, when God is in something, he will prove that he is Lord. He will manifest. He will bring productivity. He'll bring great results if God is in it. The dangerous thing for us as a church, and when I say a church, the Church of Jesus Christ, when we do things and God is not in it, and we expect the same results, it's not going to happen. If we do things that God is not in it, if he's not in it, it's not going to work. We're just doing things. But if you really want a great catch, if you really want to see God do great and marvelous things in your life, brothers and sisters, Do it because you're doing it because you believe that there is a resurrected Lord. Do it because you know that I know it's not necessarily Easter Sunday, but I know that he's still alive. I know that he's alive in me. And because the Lord said do it, I'm going to do it. And when you do or obey what Christ says, brothers and sisters, you can rest assured you will prosper.